more capitalism, and we seem to be moving the other direction. Right now we have an administration that was focused on micromanaging the economy and trying to control that. The Republican approach is a free market approach.
Tim Hulskamp, Republican of Kansas, thank you so much. House of Representatives in session. Here's Speaker Boehner.
The House will be in order. Prayer will be offered by our chaplain, Father Conroy.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we give you thanks for giving us another day. We thank you once again that we, your creatures, can come before you and ask guidance for the men and women of the people's house. Send your spirit of wisdom as they face this day with difficult decisions to be made, work to be done, burdens to be carried. Might they work together with charity and join their efforts to accomplish what our nation needs to live into a prosperous and secure future. We pray especially this day for one of the House's own whom you have called beyond this life. We give you thanks for the life and service to this nation and this House of Mr. John Patrick Murtha. May he and all those who have served in our military rest now in peace. Please keep all the members of this Congress and all who work for the People's House in good health, that they might faithfully fulfill the great responsibility given them by the people of this great nation. Bless us this day and every day. May all that is done here this day be for your greater honor and glory. Amen.
The Chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House his approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. For what purpose, the gentleman from Texas rise?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Clause 1, Rule 1, I demand a vote on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal.
The questions on agreeing to the Speaker's approval of the journal. Those in favor indicate by saying aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The journal stands approved. For what purpose, the gentleman from Texas rise?
Mr. Speaker, I object to the vote on the grounds that a quorum is not present and make the point of order that a quorum is not present.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question are postponed. Pledge of Allegiance today will be led by the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Walz.
Please rise and honor our country with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Chair will entertain up to 5 requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose, the gentleman from Texas rise?
Request permission to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, President Obama has unilaterally brought America into its third war, the war in Libya. The Constitution provides that Congress, not the executive, should decide war with other nations. Even the War Powers Resolution does not give the President the omnipotent power to continue this war. The resolution says that there must have been an attack on the United States or the war is in the national security interest of the United States. Neither has occurred. Also, the War Powers Resolution requires a ceasing of hostilities after 60 days unless there is congressional approval. Congress has not approved this war. The President's new innovative argument for this war is that the United States is not really engaged in hostilities in Libya. Therefore, we are not at war. I assume war is in the eyes of the beholder. Mr. Speaker, throughout history, national executives have justified wars because, well, they want to go to war. The Constitution and the law have been trampled on by this march to war. But we cannot let the Constitution get in the way of a good war, can we? And that's just the way it is.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Minnesota rise? Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today to honor a brave fallen hero from my district who was killed in Iraq last week. Specialist Emilio Campo, a remarkable young man from Madelia, Minnesota, gave his life for this nation. He joined the National Guard while he was still in high school, and his classmates remember him as a kind, fun-loving young man who had aspirations to attend college and go into the medical field. He served his country bravely as an Army medic. But when he would come home to questions about his exciting and dangerous work, he would always shrug them off, shy away from the attention, and explain that he was just doing his job. Earlier in the week, the Mankato Free Press reported that in the 2009 graduation section of the Madelia Times-Messenger, Emilio's favorite quote was listed as, "Dream as if you'll live forever, live as if you'll die today." By all accounts, Emilio did exactly that. Tomorrow, his family his friends, and his community will gather together to honor his memory and celebrate his life. We will remember his sacrifice to this nation and how he died and gave the ultimate sacrifice. But we will also remember the kind of person he was, full of life, kind-hearted, a good friend, and a good son. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from Kansas rise?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Unemployment is over 9%. Americans are struggling. They need relief. They need certainty. They need jobs. House Republicans have passed legislation aimed at removing barriers to job creation, including bills to rein in wasteful spending, end unnecessary regulation, decrease uncertainty, and ensure the survival of Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. One of the many pieces of legislation passed to spur job growth was our budget. My colleagues across the aisle can critique our plans, but it's unacceptable to demagogue it without having a plan of their own. Law requires that Congress pass a budget, yet Democrats shirked that responsibility last year when they held the majority, and they have yet to propose an alternative this year. We've heard a few speeches, but no honest plan that can be read, scored, compared, and negotiated. The American people need jobs. Rather than engaging in demagoguery, I ask my colleagues to bring a plan to the negotiating table. Let's do our job so more Americans have one. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Illinois rise? To address the House. The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in celebration of June as Pride Month. Participating and supporting the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community is a way of life. At its core, this month stands to recognize a fundamental belief upon which this country is founded, equality. The first Pride Parade took place in 1970 to commemorate the Stonewall riots in New York. 40 years later, the event has become much more than a parade. It has evolved into a month-long celebration of the LGBT community. What was once a moment is now a movement, bringing people together to fight for the rights and benefits granted to them by the Constitution, rights we should all fully support and fight for every day in Washington. We've got a few victories under our belt. Hate crimes legislation and the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell have passed these chambers, but there remains much to be done. I look forward to celebrating equality for all this weekend at the Chicago Pride Parade and Festival, and I am emboldened as ever to continue this important work in Congress. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Maryland rise?
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to report some distressing economic news from my district. To add to our country's rising unemployment, plummeting home values, and steep drop in retail sales last month, Allen Family Foods filed for bankruptcy last week. A well-known name in the poultry industry and a long-standing Delmarva family business, this closing could cost thousands of jobs. The reason for Allen's collapse? Soaring grain prices, energy costs, and overbearing government regulations, especially from the EPA. The chilling signal sent to potential job creators throughout America right now is that the bureaucrats in this administration are now the central planners of our economy, and they're not doing a very good job. We've tried to create jobs their way, and it hasn't worked. Overtaxing, overspending, and overregulating cannot and will not create jobs. It's time to head in a new direction. It's time for a new economic policy. If we stop the spending spree in Washington, businesses will once again create jobs in America. It's up to us to restore confidence and certainty and send a signal to the private sector that the United States is once again open for business. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield the balance of my time.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York rise? The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Republican majority seems to be using any route possible to hide the truth about its road to ruin budget and its plans to end Medicare. The Washington Post, the New York Times, the National Journal, and others recently reported that mass mailings sent from Democratic members of Congress to their constituents have been heavily edited by majority leadership if they address the Republican plan to end Medicare. But Americans know the truth, Madam Speaker. Every day I hear from many of my constituents in the capital region of upstate New York who tell me how much they rely on Medicare and how worried they are over the majority's plan to end the program. My constituents know that a voucher will not even come close to covering their rising prescription drug costs and doctor's visits. Our senior community is tremendously wise. They know that the risk associated with the Republican plan that the risk is shifted from our government to their pockets. No matter how it's spun, Americans are opposed to ending Medicare. Let's instead work together to strengthen the program and ensure it remains on strong financial footing. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and with that, I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina rise?
Madam Speaker, I ask permission to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, tomorrow the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, led by Chairman Darrell Issa, will conduct a field hearing at the Boeing Company's 1.1 million square foot manufacturing plant in North Charleston, South Carolina. This will expose an outrage of big government killing jobs. As the Seattle Times correctly editorialized Monday, quote, the NLRB is attempting to reverse a U.S. investment by the nation's #1 exporter 17 months after the company decided to make it, after the money's been spent, after the equipment is set up, and after 1,000 workers have been hired. For the government to demand now the company move everything to another state shows no sense of practical reality. End of quote. South Carolina recruited this new second line of 787 Dreamliners through a competitive incentive package developed by Commerce Secretary Joe Taylor, which includes a trained world-class workforce, a welcoming pro-business climate, right-to-work laws, and pro-business local government of Republican and Democratic bipartisanship. The Boeing Company's decision was based on economics and sound business policy. The Obama administration should stop its attack on American jobs and American workers. In conclusion, God bless our troops, and we will never forget September 11th and the global war on terrorism.
For what purpose does the gentlelady from New York rise? To address the House for 1 minute. The gentlelady is recognized.
Madam Speaker, a close examination shows the changes that our Republican colleagues are proposing to Medicare would actually make things much worse, not better. To begin with, the Republican proposal would add to the program's costs. Privatizing Medicare would cost 11% more than it would for providing exactly the same services under the current Medicare plan. And the additional cost for going private would just widen over time. And according to the nonpartisan politicalfact.org, under the Republican plan, those just becoming eligible for Medicare, those 55 years old and under, 10 years from now would have to pay a whopping $6,400 more per year than they would under the current plan. This kind of foreseeable increase in costs actually works just like a tax aimed squarely at our retiring seniors. The Republican plan would be a disaster for our seniors and our economy.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida rise?
Address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks.
And the gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, today we will vote on a bill to deprive impoverished mothers and their children of nutritional assistance at a time when record numbers of Americans are unfortunately relying on these programs. There is no better indication of the majority's misplaced priorities than when you examine their cuts to meals for low-income seniors and the cuts to our nation's emergency food banks. My Republican colleagues love to say that these painful cuts are necessary to reduce the deficit. Don't believe it for a second. If we repeal the Bush tax cuts for millionaires for 1 day, just for 1 day, we could preserve every penny of the $100 million in cuts to senior food, aid senior hungry, and to soup kitchens. We're recovering from the worst economic disaster since the Great Depression. Poverty is on the rise across America. During these tough times, we could ask millionaires to go without their special tax cut for 1 day. Instead, Republicans are asking some of America's poorest, most vulnerable seniors to go hungry for 1 day and more. Madam Speaker, our nation deserves better than that. I yield back.
What purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material in H.R. 2112.
Without objection. Pursuant to House Resolution 300 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House the committee of the whole House on the State of the Union for further consideration of H.R. 2112. Will the gentlewoman from Michigan, excuse me, Ms. Miller, kindly resume the chair.
Is in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for the further consideration of H.R. 2112, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill making appropriations for agriculture, rural development, Food and Drug Administration, and related agencies' programs for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2012, and for other purposes.
When the Committee on the Whole rose earlier today, a request for a recorded vote on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Hawaii, Ms. Hirono, had been postponed, and the bill had been read through page 80, line 2. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 38, printed in the Congressional Record, offered by Mr. Holden of Pennsylvania.
The gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, what my amendment would do is restore the $1 billion in cuts for mandatory conservation programs in the underlining bill. Almost half of the total cuts in this piece of legislation comes from mandatory conservation programs. That's the largest cut in history. Madam Chair, specifically in this bill, there are $210 million in cuts in the Conservation Steward Program, $350 million in cuts in the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, $50 million in cuts in Farmland Protection Program, 96,000 acres reduced in the Grassland Reserve Program, 64,200 acres reduced in the Wetland Reserve Program, and $35 million of reductions in the Wildlife Habitat Incentives Program. Now, Speaker, to make this budget neutral, as it is scored by the CBO, it is paid for with a 5.88 across-the-board cut in discretionary spending in the bill, including the $102 million in already reduced and discretionary conservation programs in the bill. Madam Speaker, this is shared sacrifice as opposed to not shared sacrifice in the overwhelming significant reduction of $1 billion in mandatory discretionary programs. Madam Chair, in the Farm Bill, we worked very hard in a bipartisan manner to get the investment in conservation that our producers need all across the country. And they need it now more than ever, as they are under significant danger and peril from regulatory agencies, particularly the EPA. They need these conservation programs so they can stay in compliance and they can do the job that they do so well in producing our agriculture all across the country. This is a bipartisan bill. I am honored to be the ranking member on the Conservation Subcommittee and to be joined by the chairman of the subcommittee, Mr. Thompson from Pennsylvania, and I urge adoption of the amendment. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise?
Madam Speaker, as chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, Subcommittee on Conservation, Energy, and Forestry, I rise in strong support of this amendment offered by my friend from Pennsylvania and ranking member on the subcommittee, Mr. Holden.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment will restore limited mandatory funding for the conservation programs as defined under the current Farm Bill. I believe it's important to note that this amendment does not have any additional cost. We're still within the frame of the Appropriations Committee allocation for the bill. This amendment simply preserves critical conservation programs which remain important for many farms, ranches, and agricultural lands across the nation in order to protect environmentally sensitive areas. The programs offer voluntary incentives for farmers and ranchers to enroll land into conservation areas. In my district, these programs are vital for water quality improvement on our local farms and throughout the region. And it's the same for many other states. In my area of Pennsylvania, this is vital to be able to deal with the mandates levied upon us by the agencies such as the EPA. The programs are cost-effective and provide excellent returns on investment while utilizing local, state, and private funding so everyone involved has skin in the game. The amendment, again, does not increase the bill's cost by even 1 penny because it's fully offset by reducing the bill's discretionary funding by 5.88%. I commend the Appropriations Subcommittee Chair for his efforts to produce an overall bill that is fiscally responsible and reduces funding in total by 13% in comparison to previous fiscal years. And as the chairman of the subcommittee with jurisdiction over these programs, I can say very frankly to my good friend from Georgia, I look forward to the next Farm Bill where the authorizing committee can further explore making these programs even more efficient and even more cost-effective, more so than they already are. However, changes to programs as defined under the current Farm Bill, especially when it comes to the mandatory spending in this amendment, I believe should be handled by the Agriculture Committee, not the appropriations process. And I fully support this amendment and request my colleagues to do the same, and I yield back.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania yields back his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Madam Chair, I rise in opposition and ask to strike the last word. I thank the chairwoman, and I want to first of all thank my good friend from Pennsylvania for talking to me about this amendment earlier in this week. I expressed my concerns at that time, which I still have with them, and want to make a number of points. Number one, we're not 100% sure what this scores out in terms of budget authority, so there is that question over it. Number two, I want to say that while conservation funding is down, farmers still have access to $5.8 billion in conservation funding, and that's for private landowners, $5.8 billion, actually $5.868 billion to be exact. Also, I want to make sure that my friends know that even though there are chimps in this, changes in mandatory programs, that no conservation contracts will have to be canceled because of these limitations. The federal government cannot and does not break farm commodity or conservation contracts without significant consequences. We are aware of that, so we've made sure that none of the conservation contracts would be abrogated. And then finally, I want to say to my friend, the ranking member, just to underscore some of the sensitivities that we've been through in the last couple of days, that this actually does cut the WIC program, cuts the Commodity Supplemental Food Program, and it cuts the Conservation Reserve Program and a lot of the other programs which there has been so much passion about on this floor in the last couple of days. So with that, I do oppose the amendment, and I urge everyone to vote no on it.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I raise with great concern with this amendment. It wants to reduce about 5.88% across the board. Our problem is that we dealt a really bad deal. The bill that we brought to the floor, and we cut some last night across the board, is $5 billion or 23% below what the President requested. The President put together all of the asks, and as you know, OMB scrubs those things, and we're always very critical of the President's requests, sometimes because they're so low. Nonetheless, this is 23% below what the President requested. It's 14% below what we enacted last year. We in the committee last year under Rosa DeLauro, when we were in the majority, we didn't have the impact on farm programs, particularly the environmental programs that the cuts do this year. It's below the 2010 enacted level, and it's actually below the 2008 enacted level. You know, people use these terms very loosely, below a level, but think of it in your own personal income. Think about what the costs of life were for you in 2008 versus now. And I would submit that almost in every case, your water bill, your cable bill, your garbage bill, your utility bill, certainly the price of gasoline now is a lot higher than it was in 2008. Nonetheless, you've got the same amount of money. So it's going to have a draconian impact, this bill and the underlying bill, on the Department of Agriculture and the Food and Drug Administration. So I'm concerned. I think the gentleman is well intended to protect the programs that I care a great deal about, but I think the 5.8% across the board cut on top of what we've already cut is just too much. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Pennsylvania, and those in favor will signify by saying aye. Opposed, say nay. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, and the amendment is not agreed to. Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
I ask for the yeas and nays.
The gentleman asked for a recorded vote.
Yes.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, for the proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Pennsylvania will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment at the desk.
Read.
Amendment offered by Mr. Campbell of California. At the end of the bill, before any short title, insert the following new section. The amount otherwise provided by this act for agricultural programs, animal and plant health inspection service, salaries and expenses is hereby reduced by $11 million.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, this amendment really ought to be a no-brainer. It cuts $11 million from the USDA Wildlife Services Livestock Protection Program. And let me give you 4 reasons why this should be a no-brainer. First of all, it saves $11 million. Not the end of the world, but it's a start. We all know we have to save a lot of money. We all know we have to spend less money, and this is a start for doing it. Now, why does it do that? Why do we cut $11 million from this? This program is taxpayer money used to kill potential predators that supposedly are threatening livestock. But this killing of predators is very indiscriminate. We're killing all kinds of wildlife out there, both predators and non-predators, both threatening and non-threatening. Third, less than 1% of livestock in America is killed by predators every year. So we're spending this money for a tiny, tiny portion of the livestock that is out there. And fourth, and this is almost the biggest reason, why are taxpayers paying this? Why is this a taxpayer responsibility? If ranchers want to protect their livestock, why don't they do it? Why don't they pay for it? Madam Chair, there are so many ways to protect these livestock, with pens and with fencing, with lighting, with all kinds of things, without indiscriminately killing wildlife and without using taxpayer money to do it. Madam Chair, this is $11 million we can save, should save, and will save if this amendment is approved. I thank you, and I yield back my time.
Gentleman from California yields back. For what purpose is the gentlelady from Wyoming rise?
Madam Chairman, I rise to oppose the amendment and to strike the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The gentleman from California would be correct that ranchers and farmers should be able to pay to deal with the predator situation. The problem is they're not allowed to. The federal government doesn't allow people to kill predators that are attacking their livestock. So consequently, here's another situation, just like we discussed yesterday, where the government puts restrictions on ranchers and farmers, and so they cannot protect their own livestock, and so the taxpayers, because of their demands that ranchers and farmers not protect their own livestock, that the federal government steps in. In addition, though, wildlife strikes on airplanes cost U.S. commercial aviation $700 million a year. One part of wildlife services is when USDA works with 822 domestic airports, as well as Department of Defense air bases in the U.S. and in Iraq and in Afghanistan. So part of this is to assist with efforts to prevent conflict between wildlife and commercial aviation flights, some of which can be quite devastating and deadly. Furthermore, there's been an $18 million loss of sheep and lambs to predators, or $111 million when you add cattle and calf losses. Absent predator management, losses would explode, and that would drive family farms and ranches out of business. This is a very balanced program in terms of the approach it takes to shared responsibility between airport managers and wildlife services, ranchers and farmers and wildlife services. It requires a tremendous cost share or matching program at greater than 40%. The Wildlife Services Division has more than 2,500 cooperative agreements in place across the United States. Madam Chairman, I saw my former chairman of Ag Committee on his feed a minute ago, and if he wishes some time to add further, I would yield to him.
I thank the gentlelady. And
Gentleman from Minnesota is recognized.
Gentlelady is exactly right. We would be happy to control the predators. The problem is they won't let us. And right now we're going through a delisting process in Minnesota on wolves. We just had a meeting a couple nights ago, a big meeting up north. And, you know, part of the problem is because of the budget situation and the pressure on that part of the budget, they don't even have the resources at this point, given the existing money, to be able to come in and help us control the wolves. And, you know, they're going through a process where they're turning over the management to the local state DNR, and they're not allowing the farmers to go out there and control the predators, and they're eating their calves and their sheep, and there's even a program in Minnesota where they pay them because we can't control it. And we would be happy to, you know, we've been trying to get, we're happy they're finally being delisted. But, you know, the farmers would take care of this. But in this agreement, it says that we can't do anything for 5 years. We can't hunt these wolves for 5 years. We also have a problem in Minnesota and other states with cormorants. And we entered into an agreement with Mexico that we wouldn't shoot any black birds since 1973 under the Migratory Bird Act. And so we can't control cormorants. And in Wildlife Services, the only way we can deal with that, and we've been making some progress on it. But prior to this treaty, we control these cormorants on these lakes by the local guys going out and hunting them. So we would be happy if we get the federal government to get out of this, let us deal with it. We wouldn't need any money from the government. This is a problem caused by us, and that's why we need this money. And the last thing we need to do is reduce it. So I oppose this amendment.
Does the gentleman yield back?
Yield back.
Gentlelady from Wyoming.
Would you like some time? Madam Chairman, I yield to the gentleman from Oklahoma, the chairman of the Ag Committee.
The gentleman from Oklahoma is recognized.
And I thank the lady for the time, and I too rise in opposition to this amendment. Let's face it, the Wildlife Service plays a critical role in protecting humans from dangers caused by wildlife. The Wildlife Services use biologically sound and socially...
The time's expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oklahoma rise?
Strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized. The chair may alternate sides. The chair would prefer to let the gentleman from Oklahoma finish his statement since he was in mid-statement. The gentleman from Oklahoma, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Wildlife Services use biologically sound and socially acceptable methods to resolve these issues when agriculture and industrial production are harmed by wildlife or public safety is at risk from wildlife. If you own a pet, you benefit from the Wildlife Services. They reduce rabies in wildlife populations, which prevents the spread of that terrible disease to domestic animals and humans. Every time you get in a car, you benefit from the Wildlife Services. They work to reduce automobile collisions with deer, which affect an average of 29,000 people each year, cause $1 billion in damages. Every time you fly in a plane, you benefit from the Wildlife Services. They have people working in all 50 states to prevent dangerous aircraft collisions with birds. How can we forget Captain Sullenberg's heroic landing on the Hudson River after Flight 1549 hit a bird at takeoff? And while we applaud the captain's achievement, there is no question that reducing these dangerous collisions must be a priority in the future. And the largest portion of the Wildlife Services budget, 43%, is spent on protecting human health and safety. Often, Wildlife Services is the first line of defense against health risks involving everything from West Nile virus to avian flu to Lyme disease. They prevent disease exposure to humans, livestock, and wildlife. And what's more, Wildlife Services is one of the few federal agencies that require a private sector matching funds on a one-to-one basis. It's unfortunate that there are not more federal programs as fiscally responsible as the Wildlife Services. Yet every year, animal rights groups opposed to the predator control conducted by the joint USDA Wildlife Services programs attempt to eliminate the funding from this vital program. And every year, Congress rejects these attempts. That's because the wildlife caused $126 million in livestock losses for producers, field crop losses totaling $619 million, specialty crop losses of $146 million. All told, wildlife causes $12.8 billion in damage every year to natural resources, public infrastructure, private property, and agriculture. Without the predatory management done by Wildlife Services, losses would explode, driving family farms and ranches out of business. Cutting funding for the Wildlife Services would be both costly and dangerous. Doing so also ignores the proven science behind Wildlife Services work, as well as their commitment to minimizing wildlife mortality. This amendment's not scientifically sound, and it's certainly not economically minded. I urge my colleagues, oppose it, continue the funding for the Wildlife Services efforts to protect you, your property, your pets. I yield back the balance of my time, Madam Chairman.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Oregon rise?
Strike the requisite number of words.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Actually, I have experience with this. When I was a county commissioner and we were on some tough times, we said we're not going to continue this program. We dropped our share. Heard all the same myths. Oh, my God, the depredation. We're going to lose all our sheep. We're going to lose all our cattle. We're going to have these horrible things happen. No one happened? Nothing. They took care of the problem themselves. Coyote comes on your property, in proximity to your property, you can kill it. That's a myth. You can kill it. Sure you can. There's this limited exemption regarding endangered species, which is apparently a problem in some states, not in ours. They just killed some wolves in eastern Oregon because they were concerned that they might have caused predation. Now, let's talk about this subsidy. It's unnecessary, it's ineffective, and it's a taxpayer subsidy. I mean, are you guys serious about cutting the deficit or not? Why give private ranching interests subsidies to do something they should do themselves? There is no good reason to do that. Now you're going to say, oh, it has to do with, we're worried about aircraft. Well, no, we're only cutting in one budget, which is $13.7 million, which is the wildlife, the livestock protection program. Now, of course, he said it's incredibly cost effective. It's been about $1 billion that have been spent on this program during its duration by the federal government, $1 billion. And during that time, because they're not following biology or any sensibility, the coyote population has tripled despite the $1 billion. Colorado, they fly around in planes, shoot coyotes, costs about $100 a coyote. There's more coyotes now than there were then when animal damage control started these programs. They don't understand pack behavior and what causes dispersion. They've got coyotes now in parts of the country where they haven't seen them for 100 years. It's a really effective program. It's working really well. It has nothing to do with geese or any of that. That's another part of Wildlife Services. That is not the subsidy to private ranching interests to conduct lethal predator control. And then they do some other great things. They have these nifty little devices. They're called M44s. It's basically a baited cyanide shot shell. Now, it has sickened some humans, hasn't killed any yet, has killed quite a number of domestic animals. Sooner or later, it's going to kill a kid. Some kid's going to be pulling on that little string saying, gee, I wonder what this does. Bam, cyanide shot shell. Now, that's really discriminate. That's really effective. That's the same program that has helped triple the population of coyotes out there over the last 80 years since these programs have existed. So you can come up with all sorts of hoo-ha and say, oh, it has to do with Captain Sullenberger. No. It has to do with we can't shoot these things ourselves. No. I mean, just face it. You want to subsidize ranching interests, just be honest about it and say, we want to borrow $11 million
in the name of the American taxpayers and give it to private ranching interests. That's it, plain and simple, yes or no.
Question is on the amendment from the offered by the gentleman from California. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. The gentleman from California?
On that, I would ask for a recorded vote.
The gentleman asked for a recorded vote, and pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from California will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Arizona rise?
Sure, I have the speaker amendment at the desk labeled as flake number 1.
The clerk will read.
Amendment offered by Mr. Flake of Arizona. At the end of the bill, before any short title, insert the following new section. None of the funds made available by this act may be used to provide or to pay the salaries and expenses of personnel to provide to upland cotton producers counter-cyclical payments for upland cotton under Section 1104 of the Food Conservation and Energy Act of 2008, 7 United States Code 8714. Repayment rates for marketing assistant loans under Section 1204B of such act, 7 United States Code 8734B, at the prevailing world market price for upland cotton, cotton storage benefits under Section 1204G of such act, 7 United States Code 8734G, or loan deficiency payments for upland cotton under Section 1205 of such act, 7 United States Code 8735.
Gentleman from Arizona is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the chair. As I'm certain my colleagues are aware by now, in 2002, Brazil filed a complaint with the WTO accusing the U.S. of trade distorting cotton subsidies that were inconsistent with our international trade obligations. The WTO sided with Brazil, and after a year of debate, the WTO arbitration panel authorized Brazil to engage in retaliatory trade sanctions against the U.S. For more than $800 million. Instead of effectively reforming our programs, however, the administration agreed to pay $147.3 million annually in technical assistance to Brazilian cotton farmers every year until the issues of trade compliance in our cotton programs are resolved in next year's farm passage or a mutually agreed upon solution is reached. There is little chance that we're going to have a reauthorization this year of the Farm Bill. I would suggest that it's probably not likely that we'll do so next year either. And so here we are again. We talked about this before. Spending money, 147 million taxpayer dollars, to the Brazilians so that we can continue to subsidize our own cotton farmers. We simply shouldn't do that. Now, some will say, hey, if we do this, it will spark a trade war. If we get rid of this payment to Brazil, in my view, we dealt with that effectively in the Appropriations Committee. I offered an amendment saying if you want to pay the Brazilians off to not have them retaliate for our trade protections, then let's do that out of the money we're giving to our own cotton farmers. So take out of direct payments $147 million and pay that. That amendment was adopted in the Appropriations Committee. Well, guess what? A point of order was raised here, and that amendment was stricken. So we couldn't do that. So all this concern, people say they're concerned about the taxpayer. Well, we protected the taxpayer there by saying let's take the money out of the fund that we already pay our own farmers and pay off the Brazilians. That was rejected here. And so here we are again. We have an amendment that we'll be voting on later, the kind amendment, which will simply strike that payment. I plan to vote for that amendment. I hope we do that. But another way of approaching that as well is to simply go at our own cotton subsidies to ensure that we're not distorting the market by doing this program in the first place. Now, the Ag Committee will say, that's our expertise, let us deal with that. We'll deal with that in a new Farm Bill. Well, they dealt with that in the old Farm Bill, and many of us stood here and warned and said, this is trade distorting, the WTO is going to rule against us, and we're going to end up with retaliatory trade sanctions. Well, the Ag Committee went ahead and did it anyway. didn't fix the problem. They will say, well, we tried. But it's not the direct payments that are problems. It's the counter-cyclical. It's the market. It's the other programs that we have. And until that is dealt with, we're going to have these trade sanctions. So that when the Ag Committee stands up and says, let us deal with that, I would remind people we have let them deal with that, and they haven't dealt with it. And so we have to go about it in another way. I would simply say we cannot continue to subsidize our own ag interests this way, in particular this cotton program, when we know it's out of step with our international trade obligations. So that you can go about it in two ways. You can go ahead and say, hey, we're going to not pay Brazil this amount, this protection money, or whatever you want to call it, this tribute, and then they will force us, that will force us to deal with our own cotton subsidies, or we can deal with the cotton subsidies ourselves with this amendment and simply say we aren't going to do these trade-distorting cotton subsidies anymore, and then there won't be a need to pay Brazil off. So that's what this amendment does. I would urge the adoption of it, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back the balance of his time. Any member seek time in opposition? Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd move strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm going to oppose my good friend from Arizona's amendment. He tried this in the CR1, lost this vote. This is a bad policy attack, a bad way to attack this policy. Quite frankly, the Ag Committee did do a good faith effort in addressing what we thought was the issues in 2008 with the Farm Bill by doing away with Step 2 and other programs. Quite frankly, though, the Brazilians won't lay out for us exactly what it is about our policies that they don't like. We'd be happy for the gentleman to elucidate that to us. If he could describe exactly what those policies are. It's not the countercyclical payments. It's not the marketing loan payments. It's other things that we've been trying to fix, and we will attempt again to fix those in 2012. This safety net that he attacks with a meat cleaver instead of a scalpel is important to production agriculture in this country. As we've said over and over these microphones the last 3 days, America has always had an ag policy that puts an attempt to put a safety net under production agriculture. We enjoy the safest, most abundant, cheapest food and fiber supply in the world because of the hard work, the sweat equity, and the risk-taking of the American ag producer. They rely on this safety net that is intricate, it's complicated, it's interwoven, and it works. We understand in 2012 we will have far fewer resources with which to work that safety net. And the Ag Committee is committed to getting that done. The Chairman is committed to getting that done. We will then bring that work product to this floor. The gentleman from Arizona will then have an opportunity, if he doesn't think we fixed the Brazilian problem, to present a solution at that time. But at this stage, using the Appropriations Bill to rework the Farm Bill in this manner, ignoring the work of the Ag Committee, in my view, is wrong policy. We should defeat this amendment once again, as we did in the CR in February, March. And I urge my colleagues to vote against the Flake Amendment. Now I yield back.
Gentleman from Minnesota.
Madam Chair, I strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I also rise to oppose this amendment. As the gentleman from Texas indicated, we have been trying to resolve this. We made significant changes already, and there are some ongoing consultations, or whatever you want to call it, with the Brazilians. But he's right. They will not lay out what they actually want to resolve this situation. And frankly, from what I can see, I don't think there's anything that we can do that they'll agree to. So we're trying to work through this. But as I said when we had this discussion yesterday, it's very troubling to me that we're in this situation with the way this WTO operates. The Brazilians have the most closed market in the world. You try to get any products into Brazil, and it's almost impossible. But do we care about that? No. They are spending, I don't know how many billions of dollars of government money to increase production and increase agriculture in Brazil, way more than we're spending. And do we complain about that? No. Some people say it's because of the agreements we've entered into, who knows exactly what it is. But the Brazilians are not lily white in all of this. They are utilizing some of the flaws in the WTO agreement to push this cause, and frankly, we let them do it. And so, you know, this needs to get dealt with in the regular order in the Farm Bill. This is not the place to do this on the floor of the House. We will deal with it. I think Chairman will back me up on that. We would love to have the Brazilians tell us what it is that they will agree to, that we could resolve this. These discussions are ongoing, and hopefully you know, there'll be more forthcoming and we can get an answer to what it is that will solve this problem. But frankly, my experience, I wouldn't hold my breath. So we'll see. So I oppose this amendment. I ask my colleagues to oppose it. This is the wrong place to do it, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Oklahoma.
Madam Chairman, I rise to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Madam Chairman, I really kind of thought we were working on the annual agricultural appropriation bill with the discretionary money, the programs that are handled on a year-to-year basis. But it seems we're going to debate the Farm Bill. And if I guess that's the case, maybe I should be managing it, and we just do it a year early. Short statement is, like my colleagues, Mr. Conaway and Mr. Peterson, I rise in strong opposition to this amendment. This amendment would turn an industry on its head. It would do no good. My good friend from Arizona has come to the floor and said this would imply this would solve the trade dispute between the United States and Brazil. It would do no such thing. Mr. Flake has called this the Brazilian cotton problem. But the dispute is much more complicated than just cotton and actually involves export programs. This amendment wipes out the safety net established in 2008. For what reason? This is the kind of amendment you get when you have so-called experts offering amendments in areas outside their field of expertise. This is a devastating amendment. This would throw the cotton market into disarray. We have no assurance, as the ranking member and the General Commodities Subcommittee Chairman have noted, no assurance from the Brazilians that if we eliminated the cotton program, as this amendment basically does, that it would make any difference to them. And as my colleagues have noted, we made huge changes in the 2008 Farm Bill, eliminating Step 2, changing the GSM program in a way we thought would satisfy the Brazilians. This amendment would circumvent the legislative process in what can only be described as a haphazard way. Honestly, I really expected this amendment to be thrown out on a point of order, because it clearly would end the countercyclical program for cotton, significantly changes how the repayment program works, eliminate the loan deficiency payments, eliminate the cotton storage program. Those are major policy changes. Again, this appropriation bill is 13% down. We're almost back to 2006 levels. Anyone who's concerned about what's being spent on production agriculture in rural America, take note. We are doing our part today under Mr. Kingston's bill. And when we get to the Farm Bill, be it next summer in regular order, be it this fall as a part of some grandiose budget deficit debt ceiling agreement, we will make incredibly tough decisions because we will have to be a big part of addressing the national budgetary issue. But let us do it in regular order. Let us do it in the Farm Bill process. Speaker Boehner has said time and time again, a more open process. Look at the appropriations process. We're going to do a Farm Bill under this open process. All of my good friends here will get to use all of their agricultural expertise in every conceivable way they can. But let's do it under regular order, in the proper fashion, in the proper way. Again, Madam Chairman, I urge my colleagues to reject this amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Oklahoma yields back the balance of his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Strike the last word, Madam Chair.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I rise with great concerns with this amendment because I don't think it does what the author intends it to do. all it does, it says none of the funds made available in this act, not other acts, not other bills that the chair and ranking member pass in their committees, can be used for countercyclical payments to upland cotton producers. There's nothing in here about Brazil. This doesn't affect Brazil. But this does affect a lot of cotton growers in a lot of states, including the state of California, which is one of the leading cotton-producing states. So if this amendment was constructive, I think you'd find a lot more support of it. But I don't find it being very constructive because it only limits it to cuts in this bill and not to what the underlying problem's all about, which is covered in many other acts than this one. Yield back.
Gentleman yield.
Yes, I'll yield.
I thank the gentleman. I recognize the appropriations process is not the best way to legislate. It really isn't. I mean, this is a clumsy way. This only applies to this act, and we can't. You have to do it in strange ways. I understand that. But we're told that we ought to rely on the expertise of the Ag Committee. Well, the expertise of the Ag Committee is what got us into this problem in the first place. It is what got us into the problem of having to pay Brazil in order to continue to subsidize our own farmers. That's what we're dealing with here. I recognize this is clumsy. I recognize this is uncomfortable. But we've got to do this some way, and we can't rely on just wait until the next farm bill is passed. It may not be this year, likely won't be, and it won't be next year, likely won't be. So we could be doing this for years. So I recognize it's clumsy. I apologize for that. But we've got to do something at some point.
Well, reclaiming my time, in all due respect, I don't think the Ag Committee created the Brazilian problem. It was not the committee's act that created it. It was what the Brazilians did in their ability to become a major agricultural production country, and they are, and they're going after production in other countries. They've got connections with their government much closer between producers and government than we have here. They're buying out companies. They're going to really try to affect farm prices in the United States. And I'll tell you, the next place they're going to go is after specialty crops. So I'm not a big fan, as you know. I spoke last night with concerns about getting these payment limitations down and to essentially trying to find a better program that is not so costly to the taxpayers. But you don't do anything beneficial with this money. You just cut it. And I'm here to do things using money, taxpayers' money, to do the wise thing. And this still stays in the budget. It doesn't affect the outcome at all. It just penalizes certain people that happen to be in the cotton business. And I don't think that I want to support an amendment that isn't constructive.
Amendment offered by the gentleman. Purposes the gentleman from Texas, rise.
Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman. You know, American farmers and ranchers are citizens too. I represent the West Texas District, 19 in Texas, 29,000 square miles, 27 counties, made up of a lot of farmers and ranchers and farm families and ranch families. And you know what? They're concerned about the deficit as well. They're concerned about the growing debt and the legacy that will leave for our children and our grandchildren. And they're willing to step up and take their share of the burden of being able to get our country headed back on the right track again. In fact, that process started in the 2008 Farm Bill, where a lot of these farm programs were reduced. And for the last few years, for example, countercyclical payments have been nearly nil in many of those commodities because the program was operating the way it was designed. And so I appreciate my colleagues' efforts to be a budget hawk, and in many ways and many times I have supported a lot of his amendments and ideas. But today I come to the floor saying that, you know what, this is not the place to write the Farm Bill. that we have that process coming up next year. Farm families are stepping up in this particular appropriation bill, as the chairman so appropriately pointed out, that the major cuts to agricultural programs occur in this a bill that we're considering today. And so I'm going to urge my colleagues that let's write the farm bill when it's time to write the farm bill. Let's put together programs that are good for production agriculture. I would remind a lot of folks that when we look at this farm bill, a lot of people don't understand all of the things that are in this, and it's called a farm bill, agri-appropriation bill. But quite honestly, a majority of this bill is about food stamps. It's about nutrition programs, and a very smaller percentage of this bill really has anything to do with production agriculture. And I think one of the things that we have to be extremely careful here, and that's the reason we need to get this right, and that's the reason we need to do it in regular order, is today America is dependent on 70% of its oil in this country. In other words, every day we get up and we have to find 70% of our oil has to be imported in this country. And just recently, the United States of America, half of its credit is due to foreign countries. And so today we are importing oil. Today we have to import money to finance our deficits. And what we want to be extremely careful is that in the future that we don't Americans don't have to wake up and determine who's going to feed them, because we have eliminated the farm industry in this country. And so I think that's the reason it's important to do this carefully. It's important to do it right. I look forward as a member of the Ag Committee as we move into 2012, of sitting down with my colleagues and writing foreign policy that will be good for America, be good for our budget long term, and that's the appropriate time to do that. So I'm going to urge my colleagues to vote against this amendment. With that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Texas yields back the balance of his time. For what purposes?